Yeah. Dave, as I said, Gordon McQueen unfortunately is in end of life care with dementia.
Yeah,
So I'm just trying to put some material together about his time as a player in the '70s. Is it okay to just record something with you for 10 minutes?
yeah. Feel free, feel free.
So, Dave, how do Leeds fans remember Gordon McQueen?
I suppose it's like at the time it was in, we were going through that stage where we were going from Revie into what came next, and he was a real giant actually. When he came through, he was really raw, and we needed someone to replace Jack Charlton. We didn't think we'd ever get anyone, and when he came in, he was raw, as I said, ganglion, etc. But he settled in that first season when they won the championship. Really towering defender. I remember he really grew into it the years after that. Fantastic defender, much better than he started off, much better than he's probably remembered for. So I remember, and seeing it now, you see things on Big Match Revisited. Absolutely dominant in the air, absolutely dominant. He was always a bit of an issue with him moving to United with Jordan as well. So went back after. So they disliked him, but those things happen. He was always regarded as really a fantastic player, dead keen.
What did Leeds fans think of what he said about moving to Manchester? He said 99% of players want to play for Man United and the rest are liars.
Well, they said he would say that anyway, wouldn't he? He didn't have much choice. I think it's like anything. United are the most hated side in the world by all the other fans. So you're going to get this. I mean, it's putting it into perspective. Most players would go there. If you go down the route of winning trophies and pay, etc., you probably would go there. So people aspire to it, the same as Real Madrid. But it's this thing about for Leeds, they hate United, and it's this thing about there's a difference when you play at Leeds. It's very very much a family club and always has been, still is to this day. So despised him, absolutely despised me. He got dog's abuse every time he went back after that. After that, yeah.
What about some of the Leeds teams he played in? Obviously, he played in the Championship team of '74, but in
Yeah,
'75 he missed the final, didn't he, in Paris because he was suspended.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
remember about that? And would it have been different had he played in Paris?
I'm not sure it'd be different, but I know he just lost his head in the semi-final in Barcelona. So he was always a bit rash. He was impetuous. He was still very young, still early 20s at that stage, and he knew as soon as he's done it. But Ed just got turned. There was a bit of a tussle, and he swung round and hit the guy. Knew as soon as he'd done it, he was off. Now I'm not sure it would have made a difference. And there was a lot of talk at the time. Actually, we might be better with Madeley there. We thought it'd be better at coping with the way they played. So in that game, it wasn't about defence, was it? It was about Leeds going forward, Leeds being denied the Beckenbauer, the Kaiser, and all that rubbish in terms of being denied penalties and the disallowed goals. So can't see it would be because if anything, he'd have been pushing on. So if you look at when they played AC Milan in the Cup Winners' Cup final the year earlier, he was playing very much up front, and they could quite possibly have stuck him forward if he'd been playing there. I'd have been surprised if it had made any difference, really. We should have won that game, and I don't think it would have mattered if he was in or otherwise. Cheated, and we'll always say that, won't we?
Who would you compare Gordon McQueen to now, Dave, in the current game?
These days, I think it's a very different game these years. So you get a lot of still big hulking defenders. It's certainly in the lower leagues, and its dominance in the air. I think it's a completely different game. So you could pick out any number that do the dominance. If you look at Harry Maguire, probably the same, but different player. It's a completely different game. I never try and compare.
Yeah. And what was his finest hour in a Leeds shirt, would you say?
Finest hour. Well, thinking about it, it would have been the 73, 74 season, the way he just dropped in there and filled the void and made a real difference, a really solid side, really in there. There was lots of stuff after, but Blotty's cup of book right at the end when he had this fight with David Harvey against City in the FA Cup '78, not long before he left. So I can't actually remember that many huge highlights. I just remember him being really consistent, a real threat up front. And you getting the ball in the air, and he was always up at it, and he was yards above anybody else. I do remember he was a real goal threat. certainly 76, 77 when they had Curry came in. But I can't remember, it's a long time ago now, isn't it? 50 odd years. So it's difficult to remember it, but I just remember he made a real difference. So Charlton was fantastic there for years, but McQueen was a far better player when you actually look at it.
I mean, obviously he's stricken now with vascular dementia, and his family think that heading so many balls over so many years has been, a key part of that. I mean, when you remember him as a player, he must have been heading an awful lot, wasn't he? And you agree
Yeah,
with them?
absolutely. Well, I think we just know a lot more about these things now. So, I mean, it's known whether it was at the time. I mean, you didn't used to hear about dementia so much in those years. It can't have made, it can't have not done any damage. There's so many that have been affected these days. So I think it must have done. But it's this thing about if they ban heading or make change around it, it's one of these things that changes the game. So you'd have to look at it in different ways. It can't have done him any benefit, can it? So his game was all about heading and nodding away. But in a lot of cases, actually, it's when you head it properly, you don't so much get that jar because you're not necessarily just taking it bang on the head or whatever. You're actually playing into it. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? They say though it is very much damaging people now, and that's why there's all this speculation about whether they'll do this changing trainer or changing the rules or whatever. I'm not sure they ever will.
Just finally, Dave, I mean, he's part of a golden era for you, isn't he, as a Leeds
Yeah,
fan?
yeah, yeah.
Gordon McQueen must evoke, memories of some great, great days supporting them, following them, and seeing amazing football. Is he part of that for you?
He is. He's never remembered so much in that way because it always goes up to um, Charlton, etc. So most people don't talk about McQueen as being a Revie part, but certainly that last couple of years when Don Revie was there, he was a bedrock of the team. So very much, yeah. And he was better on the ground that people remember him for. I remember Leeds were always about passing across the back four, really good passing, really good midfield in front as well. But he was no mean player in that. He was certainly a stalwart in that couple of years. And as you know, after Revie left, he was one of the big stars of it. He was him and Jordan. They were the people that went to United because they were seen as being fantastic talents. I remember actually '78 when he played for Scotland and scored against England, and England hadn't gone to the World Cup that year, I don't think, and Scotland had. I remember I was a Scottish fan that day. That was the day they ripped up Wembley, and I remember him. It was just the heart of the Scottish side. It's different from England, and he was typical Scot, typical Scot.
Yeah,
And we loved him. We
yeah.
loved him, didn't we?
Yeah, unfortunately, he never played in Argentina. I think he was injured, so he never actually played in the finals. But
Yeah. Go
yeah, no, I was just going to say, thanks so much for your time and your
That's
memories
no
today,
problem.
Dave.
That's no problem. All right.